Hello everyone. As with any activity that involves sitting or standing or using repetitive motions, playing the viola over time can become hard on the body. And then you add to that the passion and the intensity we use to play and to express ourselves beautifully. And you really want to make sure that you're taking good care of yourself and that you cultivate habits for the long term that can let you have a healthy and happy life as a violist. So today I would like to talk about some basic issues of posture and stance and talk about setup. And we're going to start with how you're standing. And as you can see, each one of us has a really different body type. So how we're going to get comfortable with our instruments is really going to vary based on our anatomy. But I think something that we all can do is really ground ourselves well. So we're going to start with the basement of the house and just really think about how we're accessing the floor for good grounding. So I always encourage people, and this is from Karen Tuttle and various Alexander technique teachers that I've had and Feldenkrais teachers, sometimes the best thing you can do is just see what gravity does for you. So we're going to jump up and down a few times, and we're just going to see where our feet land after we've jumped a few times and we're not self-conscious and we're not going to think about it anymore. Well, let's go. As you can see, there are lots of ways to jump too. So what do you guys notice when you jump? Like, where do you feel the energy in your body, or where does it start from?
Legs.
In the core.
Uh-huh. And what else do you notice about where you're accessing your feet when you jump? What do you feel?
The whole contact.
Right, you kind of start and you roll through. So the other thing I'd like to really reinforce is maybe let's just start on our heels and just kind of hang out there for a minute. And then just roll through the arch of your foot and then to the ball of your foot. So you're kind of feeling that jumping in slow motion. And then let's go back through the arches and through the heels and just kind of check out all of these different parts of your foot. And now let's jump one more time and see if we feel any different from that. Okay, now we're a little out of breath, but let's stand here and feel this. And then I'd like you to just kind of roll from side to side. Really feel the inside and the outside. And you notice you're letting your knees be a little bit springy while you do this. Okay, and now let's jump one more time. And just kind of notice, where did your feet land? Does anyone have hips turned out like duck feet or pigeon toes, or one hip really twisted and the other one this way? No, you kind of landed with your feet hip width apart, gravity brought you down, and you kind of stacked yourself on top. So this is a really good way to start, just to see what the body likes to do if you're not interfering or overthinking. And then when you're playing, I think it's important to really feel that in the floor. So when you feel the floor well, what do you guys also notice? How else does that help your playing besides that you just stand better?
It helps you just stay centered and keep from suspending yourself and being nervous.
Yeah, right. It really helps with the anxiety issue, because if you're feeling the ground and your energy is centered down in your core, you're just present and you feel better about your playing. So I think it's really important to sort of start that way. And then you guys mentioned the core also. I think it's really important. So if we kind of examine, okay, we started in the basement of the house and we're really feeling the floor well, we're active. And that last time when you don't jump, your body kind of jiggles. And that energy where you're feeling down and up and active and powerful and grounded at the same time, we really want to use that when we play, because we need power. So it's not about like being wet spaghetti and being totally relaxed with no energy. It's about being active but clear and centered from your core. So I think any of these movement modalities like the Feldenkrais method, Alexander technique, all of that is so wonderful to help you get in touch with how you're moving. So you have kind of an inner camera, so you can check in with your various body parts and see how you're feeling. I also I love Pilates, because I think having good core strength is really important for us as we play. So the next thing I want to do is, now that we've got our feet, we're feeling jiggly, maybe we're noticing that our breath is down, that we can breathe a little bit lower, because when we're all suspended up like this, the anxiety builds, we can't breathe very deeply, and then we're supposed to do all this stuff up here. So again, it's really important that you work on that basement of your house, that it's actually earthquake proof. It's going to move with anything that you need it to move, but you want to keep it together. You want to keep your body parts functioning as a unit. Maybe now's the time I want to introduce you to our studio skeleton. He was taking a siesta. He has this wonderful sombrero that one of my students gave me after she went to Mexico, but we'll take that off for now. And so if we're looking at, Norman has pins, so he's not the most mobile, but he does the job. So you can see all these bones in his feet and how he stands. His knees are a little bit springy. And then we want to talk about how his hips relate to his feet and his pelvic floor. You want to kind of see that. Then I think the next part we want to see, and we might move on to a better skeleton for this eventually, is just to see how that natural curve of the spine happens. So I think it's important to really examine what your pelvis is doing. So we're going to do a little belly dancing, if that's okay. Maybe Norman can go first. He's going to move his hips in both directions. This is a good warm-up to do. You guys mind doing this? Can we do this? We'll put him down. And we'll put our hands on our hips and just kind of open up your hips and make sure you're still feeling the floor. Since we already did the floor, you want to keep checking back into that. And just get it going in both directions. You know, shake your booty a little bit. Can help you playing. Okay? And then the next thing you want to do is kind of just test your pelvic tilt. A lot of us, like, we'll do this C curve here. And we'll hang out. And then what do you notice about your energy when you do this? It's like, blah,
Collapses.
right? Yeah, it collapses. And you're like, I can't possibly hold my viola up anymore. And it feels terrible, right? And then we do this and we feel a little bit uptight, right? So now let's come back to neutral in your pelvis. But again, connect back into your feet. Feel that hip width. Okay? Exactly. And then you want to check your ribs and make sure, just kind of thrust your ribs out too far and bring them back and feel, where's that neutral, comfortable place? Okay? And then these core muscles, and this is why it's really important that we build some strength here in our obliques and in our lower abdominals and upper abdominals to really keep that aligned, because it's beautiful that we're flexible, but it also can make it difficult to play if we're so flexible and we lose our sense of connectedness and support. So just use your inner camera and check in again with your feet and build yourself up. Okay? And then we just kind of want to get to the second floor of the house, and I'm going to invite my friend Claire Stefani to come in, because she has, and we love Norman, but Norman has his limitations. Claire has this amazing skeleton, and she can show us how the second floor of the house functions a little bit.
Atlanto-occipital bone, and that's where the head sits. So it is really important to know that the spine doesn't stop here, but goes up to here, which is really those little last vertebra here, which really you can feel behind your earlobes. And for that reason, the head can move like this and like this, but not really like this.
Right. So
Right.
if we look at Norman, who actually has a head, so we're just going to take him again. If we spend too much time this way and this way, imagine if we all walked around like this. It would feel terrible over time. And if you're going to play your viola for many hours a day, you do not want to be locked in this, instead of the upright position, we're going to call it the down and collapse position with the neck. That can lead to all sorts of injury and pain. It sends, all the nerves that flow down to our arms and hands are stored in our spine. So if you've got the top part of that garden hose squished, there is not good enough information traveling
Knowing
down
that the
here.
head is
Right,
a good
and how
10
head
to
is
15
right.
pounds.
Yeah, Norman's head isn't that heavy, but ours are pretty heavy, right? So with playing, Karen Tuttle always used to talk about, okay, when you're talking to me, you're looking at me straight on, so we have a speaking posture when we play. And that goes together with what Claire was just talking about with these occipital bones, and keeping, actually literally and figuratively, keeping your head screwed on straight becomes important. And so you'll want to find a way to cuddle your instrument in, so you can leave your collarbone sitting on here, your sternum. I don't know, I like to think of an opera singer breath flow, where you're not completely puffed out like a rooster, but you're supported. And you use your diaphragm, and you're clued into your breathing, and you're open here and free. So Claire, do you want to show us how the joint and collarbone and elbow and all that stuff can work?
So that is really important. I have to say, the first time I saw this piece of skeleton really surprised me, because I really thought my arm was tucked into my torso, a little bit like my leg is into my pelvis with a socket and everything. And then I see this, and it's this bone resting on that bone on a surface no bigger than my thumb. So easy to dislocate if I try to move this without moving this. So I believe the understanding of what that joint is for a violist is really important, because we're going to need that possibility to move all this. But thinking that it's a 3-point joint really helps keeping that joint together, and using the collarbone for what it is, which is a horizontal surface where it would be very pleasant to really lean part of the instrument on, and free this joint to go with the movement wherever it wants to go.
Right, and I think you always have to remember that the viola, I mean, my viola is a little bit on the small side because I'm not the tallest person in the room here, but you need a lot more power and force to play a real forte on a viola. It's just bigger. And so it's important that you know how that works so you can be flexible, and that you have a balance that really is supported by your entire body being well aligned, flexible and free, but not losing that alignment as you play. You want to keep yourself underneath your instrument. So Claire, do you want to talk a little bit about different kinds of setups that can help people? And actually, I think you have 3 fantastic guinea pigs here because each one of them has such a different body type.
Yeah.
And maybe talk a little bit about what people could look for.
So I would say, based on what you said, the critical aspect of preserving this joint mobile is allowing this bone and this bone to contribute to the movement whenever shifting, and same for here whenever bowing. So it would make sense that this area would not be dedicated to hold an instrument, but instead the instrument can be moved here, and this would be free to move.
Right, Karen Tuttle always talked about, she said, I don't want you to hold your viola, I want it to balance on you. So instead of you going to it, bring it to you, set the table, and have a feast.
Yeah. So I'm going to put my bone down, and Taylor, you're going to be the first one from each of you to look at. So I would first of all, I would ask him to really find a t-shirt, because this button is really a mean button, and when you put the viola here, it wants to go either above or under. So really finding where the shoulder, the collarbone is, and finding a way to really lean the instrument on it first, and then finding a way to allow the head to rest on any surface above it, so that the head is free to move from here, up and down, side to side, and using the head weight to just keep the instrument with you, while allowing that whole shoulder, whenever shifting, to be able to really move in that movement freely, so that this is not locked, right? So for you, because you have nice shoulder and I feel the collarbone, I would make sure that the instrument sits here. For you, let me touch your collarbone. So usually people have a very kind of, visible collarbone. It's horizontal, it's really free. So I would sit it here, but because you have a longer neck, I will make sure that there is a surface above that maybe will be a little raised, to just allow. I often take that example as when you listen to something boring, you just rest your head like this on your fist. You don't think twice where, but it's actually where you can still very much open your mouth. Whereas if you crank it up a little bit, and you can do that with me, crank it up and up, suddenly your jaws can't open because you push them into your skull, right? And if you do the opposite, now it's your skull that is really pushing into your jaw, so you can't open your mouth. So when we don't think about it, we do it right. It's basically, when you hear, you just offer a rest for your head. And that's really where you want your instrument. So the logic of really making sure that we adjust the surface above the instrument, and I hate to call it a chin rest, but instead of a head rest, will be adjusted to the player's neck length, so that this doesn't change, but this would be adjusted. Right? What you put under will depend on how much you want to fill the space or not, but it is not really critical to really feel it completely or at all, right? It's really up to where you like the instrument, side to front, or how much freedom you like to really have in moving your arm under. So Sergio, I would say for you, very similar also. So as you see, the critical part is first find where you lean the instrument. And then after that, based on where the player likes to have the angle out versus in, or the teacher recommends it to have, then you decide what is the best surface to really allow the jaw to really cuddle on the instrument.
And I just want to add to that again, as we look at everybody has different arm lengths, body lengths, slopey shoulders versus less slopey shoulders. I think we all need a little something different. And I think, again, it's always just, I would say 80% of the work is really organizing how you support. But it's an active, fluid, flexible support. And every action having a reaction, you want to really have a sense and an awareness of music flowing through your entire body, from your feet in a wave up and back down. And you want to bring the viola to you. And again, this is where I think a setup for someone like Sergio, whose arms are very long, I think he's more comfortable further out, right? So we have different size violas, very different arm lengths, very different torsos and body lengths. So I feel comfortable if I, again, thinking through my feet, look on my knees a little bit, feel how my hips and my pelvic floor are balanced and actively connected to the floor, sense through my center and my core, my sternum, feeling open and generous. I want to communicate with you when I play, having my head screwed on straight. And then for me, Claire helped me find a lovely fitted chin rest that helps me I can balance the viola on my collarbone, cuddle it in. Karen Tuttle said it was very important to cuddle your instrument and have a loving relationship with it. So we try to work that out. And then I like my shoulder to be free, but I like my viola to be an extension of myself there. So I feel really comfortable at the frog. Now, I'm a little bit challenged here at the tip when I open this out, but what I gain, if I lose an inch of tip or 2 inches of tip, I have power this way and leverage, and I can really pull my sound and feel my weight in my arm. And I'm going to let Sergio show you his balance and how having long arms affects where you feel comfortable having your instrument.
So here I'm at the frog, middle, tip.
And look, his elbow is still bent at the tip. He's a very lucky man. But do you want to talk a little bit about, for you, at the frog, how do you have to consider?
So because I have longer arms, more matter to fit into the whole setup, I really have to feel that my chest is open and that it kind of goes in a circle with my arm and then back to the viola so that I don't feel stuck at the frog. And then as I pull the bow, I won't speak and play so you can hear me, but as I pull the bow down and I get towards the tip, as Ms. Rodland said, I still can keep my elbow bent, but then when I go up, I have to consciously think not dropping my elbow, because that's a really easy mistake to make when you have long arms, is that, I can make sound still going this way, but I lose power. So I really have to think to keep that open circle, like as if you were hugging a tree, like a very, very healthy and strong oak.
Yes, did you know that's a Pilates exercise, actually, hug a tree, where you feel your abs up and in, your shoulder blades down. This is a great viola exercise to feel your core. I'm just making a Pilates plug on this too. But do you notice how Sergio, put your viola back up again, he almost has to have his fingerboard straight out the side to give himself enough room. Whereas for me and for my smaller students, we have to actually, we're always compromising. Every sound we make, it's a communication between the viola and the bow and our imagination and our core and the floor. But I have to adjust a little bit more, but I'm feeling it together. So I actually have to expand from my core, lengthen my arms, but I do it from here so as not to overstress these joints. Where Claire was showing us, it's actually the size of a thumb. In here you have to be very careful how you do your extensions when you're a smaller person wanting power on a viola. And that's why I think this musculature in the core is so important, and really taking the floor with you everywhere that you go. So there, again, you really want to be aligned and supported. You want to sort of explore how your body naturally wants to move and how it feels free and comfortable. And then you want to find a setup that really works for you. So the other thing you'll notice if you look at our violas side by side is they're quite different in size, both in terms of the length and also in the width here. So that's going to affect what kind of chin rest you have, whether you use a shoulder rest. I think there are some people who have a great collarbone head relationship. They can solve their whole problem basically with a chin rest, and maybe something a little sticky so that they're not tempted to grip, like a little Dr. Scholl's moleskin or something that sort of sticks here, and then they don't even need a shoulder rest at all. And that's really a personal decision. I feel like I need a little something because I'm kind of slopey and I need a little bit of support, but I don't want something that inhibits my motion. Do you want to show them what have you come up with there for yourself?
So this is, forget the brand, but I put an extra long foot here so that it can fill up, because I have a very long neck, so I filled it up from the bottom. But also what's most crucial to me is this taller chin rest that allows me to just rest my head as opposed to using active force to hold the viola in place. So I can just...
I think it's important, again, you explore what your turnout is. Everyone has I'm very hypermobile and I can do things with my joints that some people can't. That is an advantage and a disadvantage. I think you can injure yourself very easily if you're hypermobile. So you really have to be aware of your alignment. But then when you're shifting, you want to make sure not to bring this up as you go up the viola, because again, you don't want to walk around this way, and I think it can make it quite unstable. But if you can really reinforce feeling the viola on the collarbone, there's always as I said, I think 80% of your support for balancing the instrument is from the basement through the first floor of the house, really having a nice, secure second floor. And then this conversation between head weight and having your arm and shoulder underneath what you're doing. Obviously, when you're in first position, you feel one way, and when you go up here, you want to make sure you can swing, but you keep your support underneath the instrument. I think if you shift and you lose your support this way, it can get, I think every violist's greatest fear ultimately is, I'm going to drop my instrument, right? Is that our greatest fear? One of them. And so you really want to make sure, again, that you're underneath it, and that when you shift, you still maintain that sense of core, and you have to let go a little bit, but you want that to be free, so you can get up here. You can go quickly from here to here without going from here to here, because this will make you drop your viola, right? And also the balance between the bow and the viola. There are times when you're playing where you want to feed the bow some viola, so you can really feel that. And it's all, you don't want to have a movable scroll. You can move when you play, but you want to keep the playing field and the player and the football together. Okay? So is that a good...
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, chin rest shapes.
Yes.
Chin rests were invented in the 1800s. We were all very short in the 1800s, and we ate yogurt, so everybody is much taller. Therefore, most of the chin rest, unless for people who are built like pretty much Isaac Stern, who have very little neck, anybody who has a regular neck often needs a chin rest that is about a centimeter higher than anything you can find in the stores. So Sergio, you were talking about that chin rest that was raised. That's typically what we most need, unless we have a really specifically shorter neck. Then after that, the shape we spoke about the headrest, so the shape of that surface should kind of follow a little bit the shape of your jaw, allowing the head to absolutely be free of saying no as well as yes. It's critical that your head is free, same as when you fall asleep in your bed at night, you don't wake up in the same position the next day. Muscle, to stay lax, need to move frequently so that there's no tension built in.
Mm-hmm. And this is a terminology thing, but I like to think of it as a jaw rest rather than a chin rest, because I think what we need is to have a shape of a chin rest that supports us here. So I think Halam, you should come back.
With my viola?
Yeah, let's bring your viola. And Claire, maybe you can work with her a little
Sure.
bit to see what kind of shape of chin rest might be good. Because again, looking at the different shapes of our faces, I think we have very different needs for that. And do you still
So
need this to
put-
talk about it?
no,
or-
I think,
no? Okay, all right.
Should I put it on?
Put it on, yes. And I would say, most of the chin rests, I mean, it's not a bad chin rest. Do you feel like your head rests here a bit the same way you would rest it on your fist? So let me take your viola and rest on your fist. Well, do it really, rest it really. Pretend that really what we talk about is really boring. So now put your viola on and tell me if the head can rest about the same level. Yeah,
I think so.
yeah. So it's not about, and can you look at me here without, so it's free to move around. So I would say this chin rest is not bad at all. It creates the right height and at the same time the freedom to really move around. So I would not change much to this chin rest.
Excellent. Do you want to have a look at Sergio's a little
See,
more closely?
yes.
Yeah.
Could you hold?
Sure. You think?
He's Rodin. He's the thing.
Yeah. Okay. Keep that in your bones. Feel that head like really resting there. Yeah. And I would say maybe in your case, I'm not so sure the shape is ideal because it doesn't really allow when you have your head straight. There's a little bit that kind of bang into your chin here. So while you're used to it, we all adjust to really our gear. It may be a little bit changed, but you've addressed the critical part, which is making sure that the head doesn't fall forward. And with your neck, I think you've done the right thing to really raise it. So I would say not bad at all. Not bad at all. Still don't like that button on your shirt. So that's change your shirt.
So
it's easier.
so that it doesn't meet the chin, it would have to be shorter.
So
Or
not
move
not
this way.
shorter, but basically those shapes. It's really interesting how when you have an angular jaw, very often the shapes that are very much a cup are not ideal because you have to choose between your chin or your jaw
Oh.
because of the cup, right? So maybe something shaped differently. I mean, it's always difficult. There's a lot of shapes in the market, and that's where ultimate comfort is often really trying a variety of shape until you find something that really preserves total freedom of your head and doesn't, create pressure in certain area on your skin that would really lead to hickeys, even more when you practice a lot. Hickeys are usually blood lock because of pressure of that surface against your head. Imagine 15 pounds on this for a couple of hours, not moving. That creates some blood issues somewhere. So that's where ultimate comfort can be with a surface that can be more matched to your jawline.
Mhm.
Let me just ask one more question, see what you think. I've found with some of the shorter armed amongst us that for some people having a middle chin rest can be
Yes.
helpful because that gives you that extra little bit for your bow.
Yeah.
What do you think of those?
Yes, because so as you were showing, Carol, the fact that you have your instrument and you like to really have it out, right? You have the possibility of in versus out, and then up versus down, right? So pushing the instrument a bit up, which means having the chin rest more
Right.
centered or half centered, allows you to really get to the tip more easily, right? So
Right.
that choice, absolutely, where you put your instrument has to do with where it feels comfortable for you. But when you're shorter, pushing the instrument up and therefore having a center chin rest makes a lot of sense.
Right, so some people feel comfortable with that. Again, you have to find what works really well for your leverage and power, for your comfort, for keeping it together, keeping your head screwed on straight, all those good things. It's a constant negotiation, and also with whatever sound you're creating, and the way that you manufacture your power. And again, all of these factors can combine and help you to find a way that's comfortable for you. But don't ever let anyone tell you there's only one way to do it. Okay, thank you very much.
Are we good?
Are we good? Did we cover?